Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Flagrant Talk Sports Podcast. It's me, Isaiah, back with my favorite co-host, Mr. Moses Firmino.
How's it going, everybody?
And today, we're doing a bubble watch video, our first of the series. We have all of our March Madness content up on the channel on a playlist. So if you want to go through what we've done already, you totally can. But this is our first installment in the bubble space. We're going to go through all of these teams, give an overview for where they're at, give our thoughts on the bubble overall, and then give a breakdown on the team specifically. Maybe talk about the resume a little bit, all that fun stuff. But before we get in the video, big thank you to all of you for all of the love we've gotten on our past couple videos. Means a lot. Last video is one of our most liked on the channel. Very interactive, and we just appreciate it, man. Seriously. So
It
thank you.
truly means the world. Yeah. As they said, just going off that means a lot more than you guys know. We really appreciate it. We really do try to put time and effort into these videos. And we appreciate you guys showing support on that.
Yeah, and without further ado, Mo, let's get started here on the last four buys. These are the teams that are in the field. They've got maybe a little bit of wiggle room or comfortably there, but they got to be careful because just because you're in the last four buys this deep in the season does not mean you can't play yourself out with a bad loss or, not winning a game that you really need to win or something like that. So we've got Baylor, San Diego State, Georgia, and Indiana. Mo, any initial thoughts on teams, this area as a whole, or what are you thinking?
I feel like these teams, based off the rest of the bubble, fall into the proper spot at the moment.
Yeah.
It's very debatable, though, as this bubble is one of the weaker ones that we've had in the last few years.
Yeah.
But as you said, most of these teams have 2-3 games left, plus the conference tourney. Lot can change with a couple bad performances this late in the year. But I'm excited to dive into each of these teams, if you're ready to roll.
Yeah. We're ready to roll, man.
Let's do it.
Yeah, like piggybacking off what you said, this bubble as a whole is weak. A lot of it is these SEC teams that are playing for their lives because of how historic the conference has been. That's really the makeup of it. You get some ACC, Big 10, Big 12, Big East, like you still get that in the mix, but as a whole, this bubble is pretty weak, which means it's very open for teams to play themselves in. We'll talk about them with your team specifically that's doing a really good job of culminating these wins deep in the season and have now played themselves into the bracket, according to Lunardi. So I'm excited to go through these. Quick little side note, this bracket is updated on Tuesday. So that was yesterday on when we're recording. So some of these teams may have already played a game, won a game, lost a game, but we'll make note of that as we go through these teams. Mo, if you want to take us away talking about the first team in this region, and we can go off that.
Let's do it. The Baylor Bears out of the competitive Big 12, sitting at 10-9 in conference play, 8-12 on the regular season as a whole, the entire season as a whole, I should say. Big win last night, close one against a Horned Frogs TCU team on the road, which is, you'll take it, but TCU isn't that good this year. So a little bit nerve-wracking for the Baylor fans, I'm sure, but a win's a win. That is going to be another quad one victory for them. So that's huge. Miami transfer, Norchad Omier. I might have butchered that, but led the Baylors last night with 19-12. Going to need those big performances out of him as he's, the veteran guy on this team, a fifth-year senior. And they got a big chance to close the season against Houston. They previously lost to Houston on the road by 11, but
Mhm.
big chance against the number 3 team in the country at home to finish off their conference season. So, we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see.
Yeah, I think yesterday their win over TCU keeps they're in.
Yep.
I don't think there's anything Baylor can do to knock themselves out of the bracket. I think that win secures them in. The Houston win would just be a massive confidence boost heading into your conference tournament. But your
Mhm.
best win on the season would be what you're adding. I don't know if
Seed
you can do it.
boosting for sure.
Yes,
Yeah, that
seed
would
boot,
be an
all of these
impressive
things.
win. Yeah,
It would be massive. Houston is playing for that 1 seed at the moment, so you would also play spoiler to that. I don't
yeah,
know if they can, but they're the win over TCU is the important one. That keeps you in. You didn't wanna lose that. You win it, you're in the field. Nothing really more to say about Baylor. I think they're comfortably in. Um
100%.
San Diego State now, a Mountain West
Yeah.
team, obviously, that
Mm.
you're very familiar with.
Yep.
Yesterday, took a tough loss to UNLV, one that they could not take this deep in the season. And what went from a comfortably in this kind of field, that loss now opens the door for you to miss the tournament. I'm not saying they're going to, but you cannot drop that game to UNLV at this point in the season.
I couldn't agree more. There, if you watched our conference tournament predictions, I was originally going to go with this San Diego State team out of the
Yeah.
Mountain West, but based off of their recent play, especially the game in Wyoming, a game in which they won, but they only won by 3, and the Cowboys
Mhm.
are not good this season. As
No.
you said, lots of times to play yourself into this tournament, a lot of time to play yourself out, and San Diego
Mhm.
State currently on that downward slide that you don't want to
Yep.
have. They close the season out at home, thankfully, against Nevada. They've been very
Need
strong
that.
at home, and they've already beaten Nevada this season by 19. So they should be feeling comfortable and ready, knowing that it's in their hands and they have the upper
Yeah.
hand in theory. But it's March and anything can
It is.
happen. So we'll
Yeah.
see what the Aztecs can put on for us
Yeah.
the last few weeks.
It's crazy, man. I think if they win that game over UNLV, I'm talking about them similarly to how I talked about Baylor. It's reminiscent of that TCU game for Baylor where you just needed to win it. Losing it, again, I still think they're in the bracket, but
I agree.
you've now opened the door to miss it, and that is scary. Like you're playing with fire a little bit now. So that game over Nevada, a team that's top 75, I believe, in the net. You would love to get that win. You're at home. They should win that, but they should have won the game against UNLV and they didn't. So who cares what should or shouldn't happen at this point in the
Yep.
season? It's wide open. Tough loss for San Diego State. But
Agree.
we can pivot to an SEC team, our first of many. Uh,
Yep.
a team that we got a comment about on, I believe, 2 videos ago about what our thoughts were kind of on this team. And right now, Georgia is playing some great basketball. 3 straight wins, a win over Florida being the big one in a 5-point win where they were cruising. It got closer than it was in that first half where it was ugly. Knocked a big win against Texas, who's another one of these bubble teams. So you elevate that, and you don't lose to South Carolina, which is great because they really are like one of the 2 SEC teams, them and LSU, that you cannot lose to. They
Mhm.
took care of business there. They now end the season against Vanderbilt. And if they can notch that win, I'm loving the way the Bulldogs are playing. I think with the drop down of San Diego State, I feel good about Georgia being in the bracket.
I 100% agree with Zay on this one. Trending into could be a nice little team that can go on a run here, a little higher
Mm-hmm.
seeded magic I'm sensing from the Bulldogs at the moment. But agreed, got to close it out strong against Vanderbilt, a team who has played themselves into the tournament, talking about playing yourselves
Mm-hmm.
in. as
Totally.
well as not falling flat in the SEC tournament, which is very likely considering the strength of the conference.
Yep.
So, although they've done a lot of positive things to get themselves into this position, you gotta finish it out strong.
You definitely do. And this was a Bulldogs team where I was very scared when they lost 5 of 6. All of those are against good teams. The Bama, Mississippi State, A&M, Missouri, Auburn. None of those are
It's
bad
stupid.
losses.
Yeah.
None of those. They're all top 25 teams, and 3 of those 5 are top 10. So
Mm-hmm.
no, nothing bad there. They did beat LSU, handled them, which is good. But the win over Florida, Texas, and South Carolina now, I think they're doing a good job of playing themselves in the bracket. 19-11 on the season. Um, Indiana, talk about a weird season. Mike Woodson being, hey, this is it. Like, no matter what, this is your last season. It looked really ugly when they had lost those 5 straight games over Northwestern, Maryland, Purdue, Wisconsin, and Michigan. At that point, we thought it was over. They beat Michigan State. They breathed life back into their season, and a 3-game winning streak before losing to the Ducks yesterday. Um, it's gonna be close with this Indiana team to end their year on if they can make it in.
It's going to be very close, especially considering they play the team right behind them, according to Lunardi in the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yep.
Um, in the season matchup, they beat Ohio State by 1 point in overtime earlier in the season. So it's going to be must watch TV on
Yep.
Saturday. Bunch of massive games all around the country, and this is definitely one of those ones.
Yeah, this is a first 4 game for
Yep.
all intents and purposes. That is what that game is. So if you want to tune in, that's the one. Indiana has some good players. Omar Ballo, a transfer from Gonzaga and
Yep.
Arizona, has been very good. I love Miles Rice. He played at WSU last year. Was really fun and a
Mm-hmm.
key guard in taking that Cougs team into the tournament
Yeah.
last year. So good pieces. Mike Woodson, it's been a rocky year to put it lightly, but Indiana finds themselves because I think of a weaker bubble in the field, and we'll see if they're able to close it out with that game against Ohio State, and obviously whatever they can do in the Big Ten tournament to kind of add to their resume. But it's close for the Hoosiers. It's going to be close.
Yep. All these teams, you gotta have a lot of things go right for you right now. And
Yes.
speaking of going right, it's the team we just
Yeah,
talked about in the Buckeyes,
it is.
winning an double overtime thriller last night against a team that we see on this screen as well, the Huskers,
Mhm.
Nebraska, 116 to 114 in a college game. You don't see that every day of the week.
Unreal.
And as we said, it's in their hands with the matchup against Indiana on Saturday. But
Mhm.
just a insane season here for the
Yeah.
Buckeyes.
Yeah, it's quite the year for them. 16-13 on the season. Or excuse me, I guess they're 17 and 13 after
Yep.
the win. Um, their resume is weird. 5-9 in quad one, but 4 quad four losses. They're 4-4 in that department. That's really what is holding them back from being comfortably in the field to where
Yeah.
now they have to do some of this makeup work. No need to talk about the Indiana game anymore. As much as we said Indiana needs that win, Ohio State needs that win. That is going to be one of the must-watch games of this week of college basketball. So make your big man. It's going to be tough. I love Bruce Thornton with the Buckeyes. He's a guy who I
Mm-hmm.
think could go take this team on a run, but they've got more work to do if they want to secure themselves a spot in the tournament.
Upward climb, without a doubt.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And talk about a team that had an upward climb that
Yep.
now finds themselves in the bracket 18 and 12 on the season. We have John Calipari getting the Razorbacks as one of the last four in, coming off of a massive 13-point victory over Vanderbilt. Mo, how are you feeling about this Razorbacks team?
I've been pretty high on them in our bracketologies after
Yeah.
that win on the road against this Vanderbilt squad. I'm loving it. Calipari just has his team firing on all cylinders. All five starters last night in double digits for the
Mm-hmm.
Razorbacks. And again, it's going to be a little bit of a rough matchup, but they get kind of a team maybe in a weakened mind state after taking a loss in number 25 Mississippi State on Saturday at home. I guess we've been saying it for basically all these matchups. Must see on Saturday. Saturday is going to be hoop
Absolutely.
heaven for those of you college basketball fans. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to be must watch all day long, and
Yeah.
let's add to it.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for that loss before the Vandy one against South Carolina, that smacking where I
Yep.
had this team as a loser in my winners losers video last week because of it, because you cannot afford to take a loss like that. They bounce back and get a win over a very good Vanderbilt team on the road, almost like undoing the damage that they've done. They are truly a 50-50 coin flip on if they make the tournament. With the resume they have today, a win over Mississippi State helps it to sway those odds a little more favorably for the Razorbacks, but cutting it close, cutting it close. They needed that win though.
Needed it. And yeah, honestly, probably going to come down to a solid run in the SEC tournament.
Yes. You, if you can get, because my thing, what I said in the video, that when I called them losers, I said they needed to win 3 of their final 4 was kind of the way I set the table. Well,
Mm-hmm.
looking at what they've done, they've 2-1. If they could beat Mississippi State, that's 3-1. I just
Yep.
didn't think that the South Carolina loss would be the one that they would take. So
So
we'll see.
crazy.
But
Yep.
John L. Davis
That's
is
been the
amazing.
SEC. Yep.
It's been the SEC. John L. Davis is
Mm-hmm.
amazing. You may recognize him from playing at Florida Atlantic when that team went
Go.
on a run. But talking about teams that need a win, they just need a win. They are rapidly spiraling out of the bracket. Nebraska, losers of 5 of their last 6 and 4 in a row. It is getting scary for Nebraska. And they lost the game yesterday to Ohio State. If I'm doing this today, they're not in my bracket.
I would have to agree. And it's kind of they're in a shitty position. I'll say it bluntly. They have
Mm-hmm.
Iowa at home on Sunday, which doesn't really do that much for them, unfortunately.
No.
It's looking like you're gonna have to win the Big Ten tournament if you want to start at the big dance.
You're gonna need to, yeah, you need to win that Iowa game. That's a non-negotiable.
Not
If
yep.
there's no debating it. You need to win that game. If you win it, you're still in a spot where you can make it, but you're gonna have to pick up at least a win or two. I'd say closer to 2 to win
Probably.
in that Big Ten tournament,
Mm-hmm.
maybe more, depending on the way this, like a 4-game skid. This was a team that was comfortably in a couple weeks ago, and now they're I I'm not liking their odds, and I think some of the teams that are chasing them have a good chance of passing them by the time we get the official bracket. So the Huskers, it's getting scary. I I
Yeah. But on the reverse of that, let's get positive.
take it.
The Boise State Broncos are giving me hope again. 5-game win streak at the time of this recording, following a thrashing in Air Force last night
Mhm.
by the Broncos. 80-57 W, 5 double-digit scores, and they close the season against a familiar foe, the Colorado State Rams, who beat them in CSU. Just a gut-wrenching loss. I wrote down the sequence because it's so disgusting. Under 10 seconds left. Colorado State misses a layup. They get an offensive rebound, kick out, three-pointer, bang, and we end up losing by 3. Just a disgusting loss late in January, I should say, but a chance at redemption at home, senior night for Tyson Dagenhart, Alvaro Cardenas, all the boys. Alvaro, I'm sorry. I couldn't be more excited about this Broncos team, and I love the momentum heading into the Mountain West tournament, which, again, if you haven't seen our Pick'em video, I think they're going to win it.
Yeah. Obviously, we spend a lot of time talking about Boise State, and we spend a lot of time talking about Gonzaga on and off stream. So there's a lot here. Boise State is one of those teams opposite of Nebraska that is rattling off these wins that they just need to get. You've played yourselves back in, and we've seen it weekly. They went from next 4 out, the last team. Then they moved up. Then they moved it up. And now they're the final team in the field, according to Lunardi. I'm liking what I'm seeing. That win over Colorado State would be massive. That would be such a big win for their resume, which is good. They're 3-5 in quad 1. You have a great win over Clemson, a great win on a neutral site over St. Mary's, a win on the road against Nevada. That is still a good win, even if it's not this like super sexy win. The losses are weird. The one to Boston College,
another buzzer beater.
We talked about it. And it can't happen. It can't happen. This team's too good to allow a loss like that. So that's a quad 3 loss. Undefeated in quad 4 at 9-0. So 2 losses in quad 3, a loss in quad 2 against San Diego State at home, which is fine. But they're all they have to do is keep winning. Easier said than done, but they're doing it. So I like the odds of Boise State making the tournament as of today.
Unfortunately, though, the Rams aren't going to go away quietly either. They're on a 6-game win streak of their own. I believe the winner is second seeded in the conference tournament, which is huge from a seeding perspective. So it's going to be an all-out brawl on Friday at the Extra Mile Arena.
It's going to be a banger, as with all of these bubble teams. They're really all must-watch simply to see what is going to happen. But Boise State being the last team in, let's talk about the teams that are out and clawing for a spot. We have Oklahoma, Xavier, our favorite, North Carolina, and Texas, all vying to get into the bracket. Starting off with Oklahoma, the Sooners are coming off of a loss to Ole Miss, a 3-point loss, and then a 1-point loss to Kentucky. Just 2 devastating losses that were right there that would have been amazing resume builders. The Sooners have, because they're in the SEC, you get a game against Missouri today, so I'll definitely be tuned into that. And in a couple days, they'll get to play the Longhorns, who, as you can see, are sitting in the same area. So Sooners playing in the SEC, we can make it a little quicker talking about them. You have the ability to notch big, big wins on your resume to close the season.
Without a doubt, Texas won the first matchup against the Sooners on the road at that 77-73. It is just pretty mind-boggling that a team that is 4-12 in conference has a shot of making the turn. It's just that sentence shouldn't make sense, but if you've been paying attention to this one, but I'm forgetting SEC, one conference, called the SEC. You'd know why. So
Yeah, that's the thing. Going through all of these bubble SEC teams' resume is so weird because in most years that would not fly. But given the
Mm-hmm.
talent, I mean, we read through some of the losses for who was it there? It was Arkansas. Was it Arkansas? Georgia when they had lost all of those close games. All of those are
Yes.
great losses. Like none of those losses you look at and you go, dude, how do you lose to the loss to South Carolina for a team like the Razorbacks is when you can scratch your head. But most of those SEC losses, you throw your hands up like, damn,
Mm-hmm.
that's tough.
Mm-hmm.
So
The only real bad one for the Sooners is an LSU loss at home
that,
uh,
yep.
by 3. But as they said earlier, they are one of 2 teams in the SEC you cannot lose to this season. Um,
No.
and their 3 non-conference wins actually are probably what are keeping them alive in a neutral court win over Arizona,
Mhm.
Louisville, and Michigan in the tournament at the beginning of the year. So, whoa.
Yeah.
Another SEC team added to the must-watch category.
Yes. Yeah, and Xavier is one of these super weird teams to go to the next team. 5 straight victories for
Yep.
Xavier, including a dominant win over Creighton this previous weekend. A win by 22 points that they desperately needed. Kalkbrenner actually put up 23 points, which is crazy. And
Jeez.
they got dismantled. Xavier's resume is weird. It's similar to the team we're going to talk about next, but 1-9 in quad one for Xavier. Their only quad one win on the road against Marquette when Marquette was really playing some good basketball. That's your quad one win. No quad 3 or 4 losses and only one quad 2 loss. You're 6-1 there against Georgetown, which is not one you want to take. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that's the spot Xavier finds themselves in. 2 games left on the season. One today against Butler, who they just beat not last week, the week before, 76-63. You'll play
Yep.
them today, and then in a couple days against Providence, who you also beat by 9. You should be able to win both of those. If Xavier can win those, get to 21-10, go into the Big East and knock a couple wins on the board, that's a
Mm-hmm.
team that could pass over in Nebraska.
I totally agree. Xavier is a team that I think if they do sneak in can be very dangerous, very solid all around, and
Yeah,
they have a favorable end to the season to do so.
they do.
Just got to clutch up in the Big East tournament, as you said.
Mhm. Yeah, if they can go into the Big East tournament with 7 straight wins, you feel pretty good. So, we'll
Yep.
see what the Musketeers can do, but they control their fate. You gotta keep winning. You're so close to being in the field. So, a good
Mm-hmm.
team to monitor as we get closer to the bracket. Um, North Carolina. Mo, do you want to get us started here? Talk about the Tar Heels and what they're doing.
Yeah, so they've had a really good season, one that totally deserves to be considered. Just kidding. This team, 1-10 in quad one. They have a quad 3 loss at home to Stanford. Zay and I have talked about this off camera. You remove the logo and the name and you give someone this resume, there is no shot they're on this bubble list.
Nope.
But
Nope.
here they are. So we'll talk about what they can do and what they've done, which was a
Mhm.
thrashing against Virginia Tech last night, 91-59. And they closed the season out against their rivals in on the road against
Mhm.
Duke after Duke beat them by 17 um on the road. So or at home, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Duke beat them at home.
Mhm.
So we'll see. Even if they somehow manage to pull that upset off, I don't think they should be in. They need to win the ACC, I believe, but we'll see what
Yeah.
the committee thinks.
Yeah, and again, this isn't. I won't go too long. No need to beat a dead horse. I've made it clear in my bracket video, so have you, about this team. But it's just irritating because this team's resume is not good. You're in a weak ACC, one of the weakest ever, and so normally being 13-6 in the ACC means you're doing something right. This is not one of those years. They've rattled off 6 straight wins. None of them move me. I mean, Syracuse, NC State, Virginia, Florida State, Miami, Virginia Tech, all of those teams are not tourney teams or close to it. So there's nothing there. You need that win over Duke, and I don't think they will. I think the reason this really pisses me off is just the blue blood bias. Like, let's be honest, man. This is not a tournament team. They haven't played like a tournament team. They haven't proven they can beat tournament teams. Let's let it die. Let's move on.
Yep.
Like, there's no
Yep.
reason to have them in this field. And the sometimes when I see them in a bracket, it's mind numbing. Like, where? What are you seeing that
Yeah.
is moving you? But I don't know. Whatever. We could talk about Texas now. The other
For
team
sure.
here.
For sure.
Another, you guessed it, SEC team that is fighting for their life to make it in end the year against Oklahoma as the big one, and they got a big victory yesterday over Mississippi State. 3 straight losses before that in South Carolina, Arkansas, and Virginia. So the Longhorns were in the field a couple weeks ago. The 3-game losing streak really messed them up, and now they're having to play catch up in a very difficult SEC.
Without a doubt, the huge win against Mississippi State last night, as you said, but you're playing with fire here. Gonna need
Yep.
to close out the season on Saturday with a W and solid performance in the SEC tournament.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if the Longhorns can pull it off, though.
Yeah. Undefeated in quads 3 and 4, 2-4 in quad 2, and 4-9 in quad 1. We'll see. We'll see. Or I guess 5-9 after the Mississippi State win. So it's a great
Yep.
win. We'll see what the Longhorns can do. You got to keep making up for that 3-game skid. In particular, you can't lose that game to South Carolina. It seems like we keep talking about them and LSU is like, man, they're playing spoiler to you. Getting swept by Arkansas also is going to make it really difficult on the bubble if it's between you and them. So work to do in the SEC tournament, but a great win against Mississippi State. And that leaves us with the 4 teams that have a lot of work to do. And this will be a pretty quick run through here because some of these teams have already lost since the bracket is done, killing their hopes for an at large bid. Starting with SMU, Mo, how are you feeling about the Mustangs?
You know, not the best. It's kind of crazy. They are 22-8 overall and 13-6 in conference. You know, it's pretty solid on paper.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really dive into it, 0-5 in quad 1, 5-3 in quad 2. Not really anything too good there. And as you said, sorry, I started this off. It's W against Syracuse last night,
Yeah.
77-75. And then they close the season on the road against Florida State. Neither wins are really that moving.
No.
Kind of got to win the ACC tournament to make it in at this point.
Yeah, you've at least got to make it to the title game. They just have no resume in terms of like big wins. No quad 1 is
Crazy.
I don't know. If you look at their resume, their best win is what? On the road against Virginia. on the road against Notre Dame or California, like none of
Yeah.
those. That is your stamp, like your go-to game. It's not going to be enough. So Mustangs have a lot of work that they're going to need to do if they want to see and hear their name called. And they might have to just win the ACC. It's at that point. So we'll see.
Yep.
Next team, the Bearcats in Cincinnati. They play today against Kansas State, and then another game against Oklahoma State to end their year. 2 games that they need to win and should win.
Yep.
It's going to be close for the Bearcats. They lost to Houston, par for the course with most teams that play Houston this year, so nothing bad there. But Cincy, work to be done if they're going to want to make the tournament.
Another team with unfortunately not the best resume, sitting at 1-10 in quad 1. Quite the opposite to their quad 2 9-2 record, but you got to prove you can beat those top teams. The only one they did that against was BYU, who has been up and down, struggling with injuries. So similar to SMU, gonna need a big performance in the Big 12 tournament final, if not winning it all.
Yeah. Villanova, we could keep this quick. They lost to Georgetown yesterday. They're out. They have to win the Big East, period. There's nothing else to say.
100%.
You're cooked. You're cooked.
I would say agreed. This is a little bit different of a scenario because it was against the Duke Blue Devils. Wake Forest getting blown out on Monday, 93-60. They closed the season against Georgia Tech on Saturday. Again, you got to win your conference tourney. It's just too late in the year. You don't have room to make it up. You've ran out of opportunities.
Yep. And the ACC isn't strong enough this year to afford you, though. So big trouble for Wake Forest. We'll see what they're able to do. That's the final team in the bracket. Let us know your thoughts on the bubble as a whole. Your teams you're rooting for, a team you'd like to see in, maybe a team that, hey, do you believe that Nebraska can turn it around? Are you with Mo and I, Boise State to the moon and finding their way into the tournament? Let us know what you think. Again, thank you for all of the love in our past couple of videos. And with that being said, song of the pod, Mo. What do you got for the people?
My song of the pod is to shout out some of these teams, especially in the next 4 out. The North Carolinas, Outstanding by the Gap Band. I was on this before the big trend that's been
crazy, bro.
going on, but crazy. Amazing song. That's what I got for these teams.
That's
today.
Crazy, bro. All right. Well, mine is Bubbling by Anderson .Paak. I thought mine was like on brand for what we were talking about. Yours is just disrespectful. So listen, man, I'm here for it. And that's the video. That's the video. Bracket video Friday, MLB video for Mo tomorrow. We got more content for you this week, and we will catch you in the next video. Peace, everybody.
Later, everyone.